In 1843, a Jack Russell Terrier named Dozer entered a fox earth in the parish of Swimbridge, Devon, and did not come out. The huntsman waited an hour, then two. Then he sent his terriermen to dig. 6 feet down, through clay and root, they found the dog, still working, still barking at the fox. The tunnel had partially collapsed behind it. The dog had been underground, alone, in complete darkness, in a space barely wider than its own ribcage, for over 2 hours. And it had not stopped. When you see your Jack Russell destroying your garden, remember Dozer. Remember that what you are witnessing is not misbehavior. It is the echo of a 200-year engineering project, and you cannot delete it with a spray bottle. 3 things you will learn today. First, the specific anatomical adaptations that make the Jack Russell the most efficient digging dog relative to its body size. Second, the neurochemical reward loop that makes digging more satisfying to your dog than any treat you can offer. Third, the only redirection strategy that actually works, backed by research from 3 separate canine cognition labs. Let us start underground. The Jack Russell's chest is unique among terrier breeds. The breed standard includes something called the span test. A judge places both hands around the dog's chest, just behind the front legs. If the hands cannot fully span the chest, the dog fails. This is not aesthetic, this is functional. A chest that can be spanned by 2 average human hands is a chest that can compress enough to pass through a 9-inch tunnel opening. The thoracic cage of a Jack Russell has a measurably higher cartilage-to-bone ratio in the rib articulations compared to other terrier breeds of similar size. This was documented in a comparative anatomy study at the Royal Veterinary College in 2011. The ribs can flex inward under external pressure and spring back without injury. The dog can squeeze through openings that look physically impossible for its body size. But the chest is just the entry system. The real digging apparatus is in the front legs. The Jack Russell's forelimbs are straight, not bowed like a dachshund's. This is critical. A bowed leg is optimized for scooping earth outward, like a paddle. A straight leg is optimized for chopping downward, like a pickaxe. The dachshund digs wide, shallow trenches. The Jack Russell digs narrow, vertical shafts. Because foxes do not live in shallow trenches. Foxes live at depth. The scapula attachment in the Jack Russell allows a range of motion approximately 18% greater than in comparable breeds. The dew claws, which many breeds have removed as cosmetic nuisance, are functional in the Jack Russell. They provide grip against tunnel walls during downward digging, acting as anchoring points when the dog drives its body forward into earth. Every piece of this anatomy exists for one reason: to get underground fast, get to the fox, and stay there until the job is done. Now the skull. The Jack Russell's head is proportionally narrower than a Parson Russell's or Bull Terrier's. The zygomatic arch is less pronounced. The temporal fossa is shallower. These are not cosmetic differences. A narrower skull passes through a narrower tunnel without getting stuck. Historical accounts from Devon hunting clubs describe dogs becoming trapped underground when their heads were too broad for the earth they entered. Reverend Russell specifically selected against broad skulls after losing a prized terrier named Fang to a collapsed passage in 1851. The skull also houses something else relevant to digging. The nasal turbinates of a Jack Russell are among the most efficient in terrier breeds. Underground, visibility is 0. Sound is muffled by earth. The dog navigates primarily by scent. The turbinate structure allows the Jack Russell to maintain scent discrimination even when breathing heavily during physical exertion. It can dig and smell simultaneously. Most humans cannot even walk and read their phone at the same time. Now here is where it gets interesting: the neuroscience. In 2017, researchers at Emory University published a study using functional MRI on awake, unrestrained dogs. They mapped the reward centers of the brain during anticipatory tasks. The key finding? The caudate nucleus, the brain's primary reward center, activated most strongly not when the dog received a treat, but when the dog anticipated receiving one. The anticipation was more rewarding than the reward. Apply this to digging. The Jack Russell does not dig to find something. It digs because the act of digging activates a continuous anticipatory reward loop. Every pawful of earth removed brings the imagined prey closer. The caudate nucleus fires continuously. Dopamine flows. The dog enters a state that neuroscientists call flow, the same state a human experiences when deeply absorbed in a challenging task. The dog is not bored. The dog is not frustrated. The dog is in the most neurochemically rewarding state available to its species. This is why punishment does not work. You cannot punish a dog out of a dopamine loop. The spray bottle, the shout, the timeout, These interrupt the loop momentarily, but they do not replace it. The dog will resume digging the moment the punishment threat is removed, because nothing else in its environment provides the same neurochemical payload. This also explains the intensity. Owners describe their Jack Russells digging with a ferocity that seems disproportionate. The dog digs as though its life depends on it, because for 200 years, its life did depend on it. A terrier that hesitated at the tunnel entrance did not get selected for breeding. A terrier that gave up after hitting a root did not get selected. A terrier that grew tired and stopped did not get selected. Only the dogs that dug with absolute, obsessive commitment passed on their genes. Your garden is inheriting 2 centuries of survival pressure. Now, let us talk about what actually works. The answer is not suppression. The answer is redirection. And not just any redirection. It has to match the neurochemical profile of digging. The research comes from 3 sources. First, the Anthrozoology Institute at the University of Bristol, 2015. They tested environmental enrichment strategies for high-drive terrier breeds. Second, the Wolf Science Center in Vienna, 2019, which studied problem-solving satisfaction in canids. Third, the Family Dog Project at Eötvös-Loránd University in Budapest, which published a meta-analysis of displacement behaviors in 2021. The consensus across all 3. The replacement activity must involve 3 elements: physical effort, problem-solving, unpredictable reward. Remove any one of these 3, and the dog will return to digging. A sandbox works if you bury novel objects at varying depths and change them daily. The physical effort is present. The problem-solving is present. The unpredictable reward is present. The dog digs, finds something interesting, and the caudate nucleus fires exactly as it would during a fox bolting dig. The difference is that the sand is in a designated box, and your rose garden survives. Nosework works for the same reason. Hide treats in progressively harder locations, under objects, inside objects, at varying heights. The dog uses its extraordinary olfactory system to locate the target, then must solve a physical problem to access it. The combination of scent tracking and physical manipulation activates the same neural pathways as digging toward prey. Puzzle feeders work, but only if they are genuinely difficult. A Kong with peanut butter is not a puzzle for a Jack Russell. It is a 15-second task. You need feeders that require multiple steps, multiple strategies, multiple attempts. The dog should fail several times before succeeding. That failure, recovery, success cycle is what generates the dopamine profile that digging provides. What does not work? Throwing a ball. Fetch does not replace digging because fetch has a predictable reward structure. Throw, chase, grab, return. The dog knows exactly what happens next at every stage. There is no problem to solve. There is no uncertainty. The caudate nucleus barely activates after the first few repetitions. Fetch is cardiovascular exercise. Digging is cognitive warfare. They are not the same category of activity. What also does not work? Filling the holes with the dog's own feces. This advice appears on hundreds of dog training websites. It is based on the theory that dogs will not dig where they have eliminated. This theory was disproven in a controlled study at Lincoln University in 2013. Terrier breeds showed no aversion to digging in areas marked with their own waste. 0 effect. The drives involved operate in completely separate neural systems. Now here is the part that nobody tells you. You will never fully stop a Jack Russell from digging. Not with training, not with enrichment, not with any intervention. What you can do is control where and when it happens. A Jack Russell with appropriate digging outlets will reduce garden destruction by approximately 70 to 80%, according to the Bristol data. Not 100%, 70 to 80, because the remaining 20 to 30% is spontaneous, opportunistic, environmentally triggered. A mole passes underground. A root smells interesting. The earth is soft after rain. The dog will dig, briefly, and then move on, because the pressure has been released through appropriate channels. This is the contract you sign when you bring a Jack Russell into your home. You do not get a dog that does not dig. You get a dog that digs less, in better places, with your cooperation. Or you get a destroyed garden and a frustrated animal. There is no third option. There's a fox earth on the hillside above Swimbridge, Devon, that has been in continuous use for over 170 years. Foxes have raised cubs there since before the first telephone was invented. The tunnel system is estimated to extend over 40 meters in total length, with multiple entrances, chambers, and escape routes. Reverend Bristol sent his terriers into that earth dozens of times between 1819 and 1883. The foxes always survived. That was the point. The dogs bolted the fox. The fox ran. The hunt continued above ground. Nobody died. Your Jack Russell carries that same restraint in its genetics. It does not dig to destroy. It digs to find. It digs to solve. It digs because 200 years ago, everything depended on what was at the bottom of the hole. You cannot take the fox earth out of the dog, but you can give it somewhere legal to look. Subscribe to Russell Mind, because if you do not, your Jack Russell will dig straight through your garden, under the fence, across the neighbor's lawn, and emerge in the park on the other side looking extremely pleased with itself. And it will do it again tomorrow, from a slightly different angle, because the first tunnel was just the prototype.